Have you ever felt like you've been searching everywhere, yet still feel like something essential is missing? Chosen one. If that question hits deep, it's because your spirit already knows the truth. Something sacred has been calling you back to center. You didn't find this message by accident. This moment is divine. Heaven has been positioning you for this exact encounter because there is something you're overlooking, something that holds the key to your next breakthrough. This isn't just another video. This is a divine wake-up call. Before we go further, I want to say this with all my heart. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this channel through Super Thanks. Your generosity isn't just a blessing, it's a seed in sacred ground. You are helping spread light in the darkest places, and I honor you deeply for it. Now, if you're ready to align with what heaven is trying to get your attention about, comment 777 below. That's not just a number, it's a prophetic declaration that you're done with the distractions and ready to receive what God has been holding for you all along. Because in a few seconds, you'll realize it's not the success you're lacking, not love, not the clarity. It's that you've been missing what matters most. And once you see it, you'll never be the same. Let's step into it. God's chosen ones. You're missing what matters most. Don't ignore this. Have you ever wondered why you've always felt just a little too intense for this world? Why do the things that seem to satisfy others only leave you feeling more restless, more hungry, more aware that something deep within you hasn't yet awakened? That's because you were never meant to fit in. You weren't designed for comfort zones or conformity. You were built for eternal resonance. You are a divine vessel, architecturally crafted by the hands of heaven, not for small victories, but for generational impact. God didn't just create you with talent or intelligence. He embedded within you a frequency, a sacred signal of His eternal light, one that refuses to be drowned out by the noise of this world, just as a radio only catches the right station when it turns to the exact wavelength. Your spirit only aligns when you stop chasing what's external and start tuning into what's already encoded within your soul. The world offers applause, but God offers assignments, and yours is not ordinary. It's cosmic. Just like the stars don't compete to shine, they simply burn from within you. 2. Were created to radiate without comparison. Moses knew what it meant to feel unqualified, Ashtutara, a runaway, a man buried in his own shame. And yet, when he finally silenced the voice of doubt and tuned into the voice of divine instruction, everything changed. The Red Sea didn't part because Moses was confident. It parted because Moses obeyed. Exodus 14:2-2 Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind all night. He didn't lead from self-assurance, he led from surrender. So why are you still doubting what God already confirmed inside you? Why are you still waiting for approval when heaven already gave you an assignment? It's not just Moses. Every chosen one starts by wrestling with the call. Even Gideon, hiding in fear, was called a mighty warrior before he ever lifted a sword. Judges 6:12. Heaven always speaks to who you are becoming, not who you've been pretending to be. And yet, the world will try to bribe you with empty crowns, a business title, a social status, a moment of viral fame. But like chasing the horizon, the closer you think you get, the more it slips away. Remember the tragic spiral of Elizabeth Holmes, founder of Theranos, a brilliant mind with a false promise. In her obsession to be revered, she built her empire on deception. Her fall wasn't just legal, it was spiritual. When truth is sacrificed for validation, collapse is inevitable. Contrast that with Fred Rogers, the humble television host and ordained minister. He never tried to be loud, never sought applause, yet his quiet obedience to his purpose impacted generations of children. He once said, "There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are." Why? Because he understood that calling isn't about imitation, it's about illumination. There's a young woman named Maris, a former fashion marketing student who secretly battled depression. Her dream was to build a brand, but God had built her to break chains. After surrendering to her call, she started mentoring teens in juvenile detention. She gave up glitz for glory. No platform, no paycheck, but kids started crying in her presence, sensing a peace they couldn't explain. That's what happens when someone walks in divine alignment. They carry a presence that shifts atmospheres. You've felt that tug before, haven't you? That strange ache when you succeed by the world's standards but feel nothing inside. That unexplainable moment when, in the middle of your achievements, you still feel unseen, unknown, untouched. Even the oak tree, majestic and rooted, began as a hidden acorn, buried, forgotten, unseen, until the right season triggered its upward push. Your spiritual DNA is the same. What's buried in you is sacred. And heaven is now issuing the rainfall, but you must stop watering weeds. Your calling is not found in mirrors or metrics. It's found in the still, holy hum of God's frequency within you. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." That purpose is not optional. It's not accidental. It's encoded in your very existence. When you walk in that purpose, divine architecture takes over. Every area of your life, your finances, your health, your relationship starts resonating with divine symmetry, like a cathedral built on sacred geometry. Alignment, births, beauty. The question is, will you keep ignoring the call, or will you step into the wildfire waiting to be lit within your bones? Romans 8:19 declares, "For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." That means the world is literally waiting on you to rise. Nature groans for your yes. Heaven echoes it. And you've felt it. Now is the moment, not tomorrow. Not when you're more confident. Not when the timing feels better. Now, rise. Chosen one, let the illusions fall. Let the light speak. Let the frequency within you become the trumpet of God's glory through your life. You were made for this. Have you noticed how everything around you is engineered to distract you? The moment you wake up, you're hit with 1,000 competing voices, notifications, obligations, expectations. It's no accident. The world is designed like a hyper-stimulated ecosystem, an ever-spinning web of comparison, noise, and illusion. You're not just walking through a busy world, you're navigating a battlefield of the mind, a psychological minefield carefully laid out to sever your awareness from what truly matters. But here's the truth. The enemy doesn't want you to rediscover. What is loud is not always real, and what is eternal is often quiet. Distractions are like synthetic light, bright but cold. They trick the eye and numb the soul. Just like Las Vegas lights drown out the stars, the world's noise can drown out the whispers of heaven unless you learn to listen beneath the surface. What have you been chasing lately? Applause that fades, approval that shifts like sand, possessions that rust, age, or slip through your fingers like vapor. Why does your spirit feel drained even after achieving what the world calls success? That's not failure, that's friction. That's your divine frequency, clashing with false resonance. The enemy has crafted a strategy of surface-level stimulation. He doesn't need to destroy you if he can distract you. That's why Matthew 6:33 hits with such surgical clarity. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. God doesn't ignore your needs. He just demands alignment before reward. The most powerful people in heaven's eyes are often invisible to the world. Why? Because obedience is a frequency few are tuned to. While the world shouts for recognition, God's chosen walk quietly in resonance. That's why success in the kingdom isn't about luxury, it's about legacy. You were never meant to be a consumer of shallow pleasures. You were built to architect eternal impact. Like cathedral builders who laid stones they would never see completed, but who knew their contribution echoed through time. Let me show you both ends of the spectrum. Pope John Paul II, born in war-torn Poland, lost his entire family before becoming a global shepherd of souls. He didn't chase attention, he chased truth. His legacy? A world moved toward unity and dignity. He once said, "The future starts today, not tomorrow." Chosen one, your eternal impact starts now, not when you feel ready. On the other hand, Jordan Belfort, the self-proclaimed Wolf of Wall Street, lived for wealth, excess, and instant gratification. And for a while, it worked, until it collapsed under the weight of lies, greed, and addiction. His rise was loud, but his fall was louder. What's the cost of success when it silences your soul? But here's the deeper revelation. Your distractions are not proof of failure. They are signals. Signals that your calling is too high to be ignored. There's a story of a young man named Elias who was obsessed with building an app to gain recognition after it failed. He fell into depression, but something in him refused to die. He started quietly volunteering at a rehab center. One night, while helping a teenage addict through withdrawal, the boy whispered, "You're the first person who stayed." In that moment, Elias realized his true calling wasn't to be applauded, but to be present. His app never changed the world, but his obedience did. Nature bears witness to this truth. A river doesn't fight to flow. It simply obeys gravity and carves canyons over time. You are that river. Chosen one. You don't need to hustle for worth. You need to yield to truth. Now, what about the pain? What about the moments that feel like God is silent while your life spins out? You are being forged in fire, not abandoned. The trials you face are not a detour from destiny. They're the refining chamber of eternal significance. Think of Joseph, betrayed by blood, imprisoned by lies, and forgotten by the very people he helped. But Genesis 50:20 records his redemption. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Joseph was not promoted because he fought harder. He was elevated because he stayed faithful in hiddenness. What if the season you're in isn't punishment, but preparation? There's a woman named Clara who lost her corporate job unexpectedly. For months she questioned her value, until a small online prayer group she started went viral during the pandemic. Within a year, thousands were tuning in for healing, deliverance, and truth. Her breakdown became the launchpad for spiritual authority. What if yours will too? 1 Peter 1-7 says, "These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold. Gold doesn't fear fire, it requires it. The world taught you to fear discomfort. But God teaches you to see refinement as a sign of royalty. Think about the phoenix, not just myth, but metaphor. It burns not to end, but to begin again brighter, purer, elevated. You are that rebirth in motion. Are you tired because you've been running from something? Or is it because heaven has been trying to get your attention? Now hear this, the fight is not in vain. God has already placed his hand on you. Isaiah 41:10 reminds you, do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. You are not disqualified by your pain. You are being positioned through it. The world counts you out based on what you've lost, but God counts you in based on what he's about to restore. Stop chasing what numbs you. Start walking toward what ignites you. Step away from the noise. Realign with the whisper. Reclaim what matters most. You were created not just to endure the world, but to transform it. Now rise. Chosen one. The fire is not your end. It's your becoming. Have you felt something stirring in the silence lately? A shift you can't explain. It's not just you evolving, it's heaven advancing through you. What you're feeling isn't just growth, it's transformation. Divinely orchestrated and irreversible. This is the season where the old you falls away, not with violence, but with sacred stillness. And what rises in its place is someone aligned with God's architecture, designed to carry light into a dark world. Transformation doesn't begin on the outside. It begins in the subatomic resonance of your soul, where God's presence rewires the very frequencies you emit. What once drew chaos now draws clarity. What once attracted disorder now attracts destiny. When you focus on what matters most, your intimacy with God, your eternal assignment, your spiritual integrity, something begins to shift on a cellular level. The heaviness that sat on your chest for years begins to dissolve. Anxiety loses its grip. Confusion fades. Why? Because heaven never leaves an aligned heart unchanged. Romans 12:2 declares, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This isn't motivational fluff. This is spiritual physics alignment with divine order produces supernatural breakthrough. Imagine a chrysalis, the silent cocoon between crawling and flying. From the outside, it looks still, unimpressive, but inside, cells are dissolving and reconstructing. Identity is shifting. Wings are forming. That's you, chosen one. The world may not understand your stillness right now, but it will marvel at your flight later. And here's what happens when you align. Peace returns, not as a feeling, but as a foundation. Joy rises, not as an emotion, but as a spiritual signature. People begin to notice a light they can't explain. They ask you, what's changed? But you won't have a formula, you'll have a presence. Because this isn't a mental upgrade, it's a spiritual rebirth. Your finances begin to align not because you hustle harder, but because your motives shift from acquisition to assignment. Your relationships begin to mend, not through manipulation, but through trust in God's timing. Your health begins to improve not from fads or force, but because you've surrendered to the divine rhythm of rest, obedience, and sacred order. It's like a symphony finally playing in tune. Nothing is louder, but everything is in harmony. You may not see the full picture yet, but the blueprint is unfolding. Psalm 130:8. Ocho assures you The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me, your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. God finishes what he starts. You are not a project. You are a prophecy in motion. Even the universe obeys this divine pattern. Stars, in their final death throes, collapse inward only to explode into supernovas, birthing galaxies. Could your breakdowns be making room for creative force? Could your collapse be the prelude to generational radiance? One of the most transformative people of our time, Nick Vujicic, born without arms or legs, didn't let limitation define him. He became a global speaker, evangelist, and inspiration to millions. He once said, "If God can use a man without arms and legs to be his hands and feet, then he will certainly use any willing heart. You don't need perfection. You need alignment." In contrast, think of Bernie Madoff, once hailed as a financial genius, who built the largest Ponzi scheme in history. On the surface, he had everything: wealth, respect, power. But inside, the structure was hollow. When exposed, it crumbled, destroying lives and legacies. Why? Because transformation without truth always collapses. And yet, even in obscurity, truth is being formed in you. There's a woman named Nara, once addicted to validation, who spent years obsessed with building an online empire, burned out, broken, and betrayed. She left it all behind and began teaching art to trauma survivors in prisons. She said, "I don't have followers now, I have freedom." That's what happens when divine transformation replaces shallow ambition. This is the type of fruit God is cultivating in you, fruit that lasts. Jesus says in John 15:16, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last." This is not about temporary wins or curated moments. This is about legacy. This is about what your life will echo after you've left the room. If your life ended tomorrow, would what you built still speak, or would it vanish with the applause? 1 Corinthians 3:13 reminds us, their work will be shown for what it is, because the day will bring it to light. What you build in the spirit outlives trends, trials, and even death. That's the power of transformation born in divine alignment. And yes, people will be confused by your glow. They will try to explain your breakthrough using logic, but what God is doing cannot be analyzed. It can only be witnessed, like the northern lights. Your life begins to shimmer with colors, only visible in the darkest skies. You become the proof that even in pressure, beauty can emerge, even in silence. God speaks loudest. So pause and absorb this. You are already shifting. You are already rising. You are already being prepared for an impact that cannot be erased. When you step fully into this truth, something sacred happens. Your entire life becomes a cathedral of God's glory, built not with stones, but with obedience, resilience, and radiant surrender. You were not created for surface success. You were created to disrupt spiritual atmospheres, to carry a legacy so loud that heaven hears it echo. Chosen one, this is your becoming. Now rise. Radiant one. The cocoon has cracked. The light is waiting. Let's confront something the enemy hopes you never notice. The devil isn't trying to destroy you outright. That would be too obvious. Instead, he seeks to disarm you with distractions, subtle, glittering lies designed to drain your time, question your worth, and fracture your focus. He doesn't need to break your faith if he can blur your vision. His greatest weapon is noise. Have you ever wondered why your peace evaporates the moment you begin praying with intention? Why do interruptions always show up right when you're on the edge of clarity? It's no accident. Hell fears a focused chosen one. The enemy knows he can't cancel your calling, so he tries to cloud it. But here's the eternal truth. His power is counterfeit, but your authority is covenantal. Isaiah 54:17 thunders like a war cry through the heavens. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Did you catch that? Not only will the weapons fail, you will have the power to speak against every lie, accusation, and manipulation. You are not walking through this world unguarded. You are sealed in grace, surrounded by fire, and covered by a king. Why do his attacks crumble in your presence? Because you carry the divine frequency of truth. The enemy traffics in distortion, but when you walk in alignment, your very presence disrupts his systems. Your obedience triggers spiritual dissonance in dark places. That's why you're fought so hard, because you're that dangerous. This is not just poetic, it's spiritual science in psychology. There's something called attentional saturation, when the brain becomes overloaded and stops responding to meaningful input. That's what the enemy wants for your soul. Overstimulated, exhausted, spiritually numb. But God designed your spirit to resonate with clarity, not chaos. That's what Daniel understood. Thrown into a lion's den by corrupt politicians, Daniel had every reason to panic, but instead, he rested. Daniel 6:22. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. Daniel didn't fight the lions. He trusted the Lion of Judah, and because of that, the jaws of death were silenced. He didn't survive because he was strong. He survived because he was aligned. You are Daniel in this generation. Your silence is power. Your stillness is warfare. Let me challenge you with something. What's been pulling your attention away from the sacred? Is it anxiety that clings like static? A toxic relationship that poisons your perspective? An inner voice whispering, "You're not enough"? Or maybe it's just the constant pressure to perform for people who wouldn't even notice if you broke. The enemy thrives in your exhaustion, but dies in your surrender. It's time to drop the distractions like dead weight. Let go of the burdens dressed up as blessings. Let go of people who don't speak about your future, only your fears. When you release what doesn't serve your spirit, you make room for what God has already appointed. Psalm 46:10 offers a nuclear truth in a whisper. Be still and know that I am God. Stillness isn't passivity, it's precision. In silence, your spirit recalibrates. In stillness, your frequency rises. What matters most is found there in the gentle voice that doesn't compete with the noise, but conquers it. You are not what happened to you. You are what God is resurrecting in you. Let me show you the contrast. Cardinal Stefan Wyszyński, imprisoned for refusing to bow to a godless regime, remained unbroken. In his silence, his letters changed nations. He once wrote, "Freedom begins in the soul, not the street." Because he prioritized God's presence over political safety, generations were freed through his resilience. Now, let's look at Jim Jones, the cult leader who twisted truth for control. Once an admired community leader, he manipulated thousands into blind allegiance, ending in mass death. Why? Because when someone builds spiritual influence on ego rather than divine order, collapse is inevitable. Without alignment to God's voice, even charisma becomes a curse. But you, chosen one, are marked by a different path. There's a young man named Lior. Once addicted to his own ambition, every time he succeeded, he felt emptier. He was praised publicly, but tormented privately. One night, lying awake after winning an award, he heard nothing but silence. In that void, a phrase echoed, "Is this who you wanted to become?" He quit his job weeks later, moved to the mountains, and began writing devotionals for trauma survivors. His income shrank, but his soul finally breathed. Sometimes loss is the only path to resurrection. Nature shows us this every day. Snakes shed skin, not because they're dying, but because they're outgrowing the past. If they don't release it, they suffocate. So what outdated identity must you release? What skin must you leave behind to step into your divine expansion? Deuteronomy 31:6 gives you this charge. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, for the Lord your God goes with you. That means the enemy doesn't stand a chance. Not now. Not ever. Chosen one, pause here. Feel the weight of this moment. You're not who they said you were. You're not what the world labeled you. You are God's design, heaven's echo, a warrior of light. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by your becoming. And that breakthrough you keep praying for, it's already forming. Every prayer you whispered in exhaustion, every tear you buried in your pillow, none of it has been wasted. You're not about to be delivered. You're already being transformed. So rise, shake off the lies, silence the noise, and walk like someone the enemy fears, because that's exactly what you are. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere shift before anyone spoke a word? That's the power of unseen resonance. That's what happens when a chosen one steps into alignment with heaven. Your presence emits more than light. It emits glory. Not glory in the way the world defines it, flashy, shallow, temporary, but a glory birthed in obedience, consecration, and truth. This is your glow-up season, but not the kind the internet sells you. This is the kind that originates in the unseen realms. A divine glow forged not through self-improvement, but through soul surrender. When you focus on what matters most, your calling, your creator, your eternal assignment, your inner frequency starts syncing with heaven's rhythm. And when your spirit harmonizes with divine resonance, the light within you becomes undeniable. Isaiah 60:1 commands it. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. This is not a poetic metaphor, it's an instruction for activation. Your glow isn't vanity, it's warfare. It's a declaration that darkness cannot win. People will notice something different. They won't be able to name it, but they'll feel it. Your peace will calm rooms. Your eyes will carry revelation. Your walk will command respect, not because of status, but because you move with divine architecture behind every step. You won't have to explain yourself. Your glow will preach louder than your words ever could. And yes, there will be haters. There always are when light enters shadow. Esther knew what it meant to stand in that tension. A Jewish orphan turned queen, positioned in a palace that could either protect or kill her. When the time came to speak for her people, she could have stayed silent. She could have bowed to fear. But instead, she said in Esther 4:16, "If I perish, I perish." And that bold obedience shifted the destiny of a nation. You are Esther in this hour, positioned in a time, place, and generation that needs your light. Have you been hiding your light to stay comfortable? Have you been dimming your truth to remain accepted? What part of your glow have you buried just to avoid rejection? It's time to rise. Bioluminescent creatures like the firefly or deep-sea jellyfish glow from within. They don't need the sun to shine. They generate light from their own internal design. That's you, chosen one. Your glow is not environmental, it's elemental. There's a young woman named Dahlia who worked behind the scenes in a high-profile ministry. No one noticed her. She organized spreadsheets, folded bulletins, and served coffee. But something about her presence shifted people. One day, a woman in tears said, "When you handed me that bulletin, I felt God tell me everything was going to be okay." That's a divine glow, not performance, but presence. The enemy fears this version of you, because once you realize the glow comes from who you are in Him, not what you achieve, you become untouchable. Now, let me show you the opposite. Anna Sorokin, also known as Anna Delvey, was a socialite con artist who deceived elite circles into thinking she was a German heiress. She wore glamour like armor, but behind the filters was emptiness. Her glow was borrowed, her brand a facade. Eventually, the lie collapsed, and with it, her influence. Why? Because counterfeit light can't survive exposure. Real glow doesn't need permission. It doesn't need platforms. It radiates from the Spirit. Romans 8:28 confirms your security. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. That includes the pain. That includes the shame. That includes the silent seasons where no one saw your obedience, but heaven took notes. Everything is working. Nothing is wasted. Your trials are being woven into a tapestry of testimony. You are not being punished, you're being polished. Even stars must burn before they shine. So, yes, pause this moment. Speak with your actions. Comment 777 to declare alignment, not as a trend, but as a prophetic agreement with the frequency of heaven. Subscribe to this move of God, not for content, but for confirmation. Hit the like, not for algorithm, but to amplify what's happening in the Spirit. You are not just watching, you are awakening. You are stepping into your moment. The world will try to dim you with drama, fatigue, and doubt, but the glow cannot be dimmed when it comes from glory. Let go of what no longer serves the light in you, that old fear, the lingering self-hate, the voices that said, "You're not worthy, they have no place in your atmosphere." Shed them like dust. Philippians 2:15 reminds us. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. End of 2. You are God's lantern in a fading world. Now walk into every room like heaven sent you, because it did. Walk in such a way that darkness has to ask permission to stay. You are the glow. You are the shift. You are the living proof. And your time? It's now. Can you feel it? That silent, sacred pressure in the atmosphere, like something divine is shifting under the surface. That's not your imagination. That's heaven moving in your direction. You are standing on the edge of a moment so precise, so eternally timed, that it could only have been orchestrated by the Creator Himself. The opportunities ahead of you are not random, they are revelatory. They are divine keys placed before you to unlock everything that's been buried, delayed, or distorted. Revelation 3:8 declares it clearly. I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. This isn't a metaphor. It's a legal decree in the Spirit. These are not just job offers, promotions, ecos, or collaborations. These are divine alignments, loaded with assignments. God is not handing you chances. He's handing you calls. But divine doors require divine eyes to see them. Many miss their breakthrough, not because it wasn't there, but because they couldn't recognize it when it came. Like Jacob waking from a dream and whispering in Genesis 28-16, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." Don't let that be you. The opportunities approaching you were crafted before time began. They were written into your soul like blueprints into stone, waiting for your spirit to reach the frequency where they could manifest. But to walk through them, you must release the illusion that you are unworthy. You must dismantle the architecture of small thinking and rise into the temple of God's design. What are you delaying because you've convinced yourself you're not ready? What doors are open but you're afraid to walk through because your past keeps echoing louder than your promise? David didn't wait until he had royal robes to kill Goliath. He stepped into battle as a shepherd, with nothing but a sling and certainty in God. 1 Samuel 17:45 reveals his posture. "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." He didn't look the part, but he carried the presence. That's what you carry too. You may not see it yet, but the giants in your life have already been marked for defeat. Fear, insecurity, financial instability, isolation. These are not permanent structures. They are fragile illusions that collapse when confronted by divine authority. Let me show you both paths. Howard Schultz, the visionary behind Starbucks, grew up in public housing, overlooked and under-resourced. But when an opportunity came to build something greater, he didn't see coffee, he saw connection. He once said, "In times of adversity and change, we discover who we really are and what we're made of." He didn't wait for perfection. He walked through the door and created legacy. Now compare that to Martin Shkreli, a former pharmaceutical CEO known for drastically inflating the price of life-saving medication. Driven by greed and manipulation, he abused access and authority, becoming a public symbol of corporate cruelty. His fall was swift and brutal, because when doors are entered with deception, collapse is inevitable. God does not sustain what ego constructs. And then there's a man named Jude, a former bouncer turned youth pastor. His door came in the form of a 13-year-old boy who tried to steal his phone. Instead of pressing charges, Jude took him out for lunch. That boy is now leading worship in a church of 5. Sometimes opportunity doesn't look like a platform. Sometimes it looks like an interruption disguised as an assignment. Creation teaches us this. The giraffe, when born, falls from a height of nearly 6 feet, hitting the ground hard, but it's that very fall that shocks the lungs into breath. Without the fall, the baby can't survive. Without the jolt, it won't rise. You too may feel like you've been dropped, shaken, or slammed into unfamiliar ground. But that impact wasn't your end. It was your initiation. The height of your fall will match the elevation of your rise. And now, you are standing at a divine crossroads, a threshold between the old version of you and the emerging you, anointed, activated, aligned. What matters most is not who you've been, but who heaven is calling you to become. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." You've never been random. You've been reserved. Let go of the script others wrote for you. Let go of the identity built in survival. The struggle shaped you, but it is not your story's headline. The world may try to define you by your lack, but God defines you by your legacy. What's scarier, staying stuck or stepping through? What's heavier, your fear of failure, or the weight of a destiny never activated? This is your time. Chosen one, Romans 8. 30 declares. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. You are not being considered. You've already been chosen. All that's left is for you to agree. So pause this video. Comment 777 as a prophetic agreement with the heaven-ordained opportunities placed before you. Hit the like, not to boost the content, but to amplify the clarity. Subscribe not for numbers, but to align with thousands of others stepping into sacred purpose. You are standing in the corridor between preparation and manifestation. The door is open. The time is now. Your name is being whispered in rooms your feet haven't entered yet. You were never meant to live unnoticed. You were never called to walk in circles. You were created to step forward boldly, radiantly, relentlessly. So, walk through the door, not as a guest, but as the one it was built for. Let it sink in, not just into your mind, but into the marrow of your being. This isn't just another nice idea. This is a heavenly charge wrapped in spiritual voltage. Chosen one, divine strength is rising in you. And it has nothing to do with hype. It is not manufactured. It is not borrowed. It is resurrected. You are being fortified from within, not by motivation, but by manifestation, the Spirit of God activating what has been buried under fear, fatigue, and delay. Romans 8:11 confirms it. The Spirit of Him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, not around you, not near you, in you. That means resurrection power, the kind that makes graves reverse their grip, is not a metaphor. It's your inner reality. This isn't about physical strength. This is divine conductivity. When your faith aligns with God's design, you become a vessel of heaven's energy. What was once dormant comes alive. Where once there was hesitation, now there is holy velocity. But have you ever asked yourself why the trials seem heavier the moment you start seeking truth? It's because your spirit is waking up, and hell gets nervous when a chosen one stops scrolling and starts rising. Paul and Silas understood this. Beaten, bruised, and chained in a prison cell. They didn't moan. They worshipped. Acts 16:25, -26 records. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. Suddenly there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. When praise replaces panic, shackles don't stand a chance. You are Paul and Silas in this moment. Maybe you've been bound by anxiety, by shame, by spiritual stagnancy. But when you align with what matters most, the chains can't hold the chosen. Now, let me shift your lens with something raw and real. There's a man named Ronan once, a private security contractor, known for violence and control. After a near-death experience in a war zone, he left it all behind, broke, bitter, and directionless. He wandered into a church in Manila. No worship, just silence. For the first time in years, he wept. Today, he runs trauma recovery workshops for ex-soldiers. His strength didn't come from guns. It came from God. The fire didn't kill him. It reforged him. The banana plant looks like a tree, but it's not. It has no true trunk, just tightly packed layers of leaves, rising in humble silence. It grows rapidly, but doesn't bear fruit until it breaks open from within. And once it produces fruit, that plant dies, so new shoots can rise in its place. You are like that. Your strength isn't in show, but in surrender. Your growth may feel hidden, but it's happening fast. And the moment you think it's over, a legacy emerges. Let's be even more clear by drawing contrast. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. the drug lord, built a kingdom on fear and manipulation, and it eventually collapsed under the weight of its own darkness. But let's go further. Jeffrey Epstein, once an elite financier and socialite, used his influence and wealth to exploit and destroy lives behind closed doors. His empire looked powerful on the surface, but beneath was spiritual rot. His crimes came to light. And in a prison cell, the weight of truth caught up with him. The glow of wealth cannot protect a corrupted soul. Divine justice doesn't forget. But you, chosen one, are not building sandcastles of ego. You're building a foundation of eternity. Isaiah 40:29 proclaims, He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Your weakness is not disqualification. It's the very doorway through which strength enters. Every decision you make in alignment with God's purpose is laying structural integrity into your future. Like steel inside concrete, it's unseen, but it is everything. What would change if you fully believed you were chosen? You would stop explaining your value. You would stop apologizing for your glow. You would stop shrinking in rooms you were born to lead. Your life would become a cathedral of glory, not because of perfection, but because of surrendered power. You'd walk into darkness and light would follow. You'd speak truth and strongholds would shake. Ephesians 3:16 prays this over you. I pray that out of His glorious riches He may strengthen you with power through His Spirit in your inner being. That's where it begins, not in the mirror, in the depths of your spirit. So, pause this moment. Comment 777 if your soul knows you've been playing too small. Subscribe not for content, but because you're aligning with divine acceleration. Hit like not for engagement, but to release a signal into the spirit. I am ready. Ping, chosen one. Rise in your God-given strength. Stand firm like a banana plant, rooted deep, breaking open, not in weakness, but in legacy. Let the old shell die if it must, because fruit is coming. This world doesn't need another copy. It needs the unshakable, unchained, undeniable. Let's talk about the divine peace that's been calling your name. Chosen one. The kind of peace that silences the war within. Not a peace born from predictability or control, but from surrender to the eternal architect of your life. Scripture tells us in Philippians 4:7, the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This is a neurological mystery, how divine alignment calms the chaos of your limbic system, regulates the storm of your thoughts, and recenters your identity, not in reaction, but in reverence. You were never meant to live storm-tossed. You were meant to live anchored. Think about Jesus sleeping through the storm in Mark 4:39. While the disciples were drowning in fear, He rested because He trusted the Father. You are in that same boat. Chosen one. You may feel the winds screaming, the waters rising, the world collapsing, but inside your soul is a command waiting to be spoken. Peace. Be still. All. Now pause. What would shift in your life if you stopped chasing clarity and started chasing presence? The woman at the well in John 4 lived in perpetual shame, abandoned by the community and loaded with relational wounds. Yet in one moment of divine conversation, Jesus saw beyond her history and spoke into her destiny. That woman became a vessel of revival. You are that woman. Chosen one, not because of your perfection, but because of the encounter God has planned for you. But while peace knocks gently, ambition often screams louder, and some, like Adam Neumann, mistake noise for calling. Neumann, the charismatic founder of WeWork, claimed his mission was to elevate the world's consciousness, but behind the idealism was an unchecked ego, lavish spending, grandiose, spiritual language, and messianic delusions led to one of the most catastrophic collapses in startup history. Why? Because even a God-sized vision will rot when it's rooted in self instead of surrender. Now contrast that chaos with creation. The salmon begins its life in fresh water, often a small stream far inland. It grows, develops, and then embarks on an epic journey to the vast, open ocean. It thrives there, navigating immense distances and facing countless challenges. But here's what most don't realize. After years of growth, when it's mature and strong, it returns to the very stream where it was born to spawn. This arduous upstream journey, often against powerful currents, is its final act. It lays its eggs, ensuring the next generation, and then its life cycle complete. It dies. That death isn't failure, it's legacy. It passes on life, nourishing the ecosystem and providing for the young fry that will soon emerge. Like the salmon, you were never designed to just grow. You were designed to reproduce fruit that outlives your name. What have you been watering that bears no fruit? What have you sacrificed peace for performance, applause, control? Ephesians 3:20 promise. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. But that overflow comes when you're aligned, not just ambitious. Abraham understood this. When God called him to leave everything, he didn't cling to comfort. Genesis 12:1-3 shows us a man who chased a promise unseen, and that journey, fueled by obedience, birthed nations. You are Abraham in this moment, chosen one. Every step toward peace is a step toward eternal impact. Now breathe this in. Your soul doesn't want more success, it wants stillness. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. That promise becomes your atmosphere when you stop idolizing certainty and start honoring divine peace. Isaiah 26:3 seals it. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. No. So, take this moment. Comment 777. If your soul is saying, I'm ready. Like the banana tree, yield your will. Die to distractions. And let fruit rise from the ground you've broken. Peace is not passive. Peace is power. And when you walk in it, you become a storm the enemy cannot silence. There is a moment when your eyes begin to open, not your physical sight, but the inner lens of divine perception. You begin to see, not with the logic of man, but through the frequency of faith. Chosen one. This is what's happening to you now. You're not just waking up to a new day, you're awakening to a dimension of purpose that has always been planted inside you. As your gaze sharpens, the illusion fades. What once looked like failure now appears as divine preparation. What once seemed like pain now pulses with promise. You are beginning to see like Noah. Noah wasn't just building a boat, he was building a future. The world mocked him, ridiculed his obedience, labeled him mad. But Noah didn't need their sight. He had vision. Hebrews 11:2 affirms. By faith Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear constructed an ark. He moved in divine alignment when the world saw nothing. Isn't that the story of your life? Chosen one. Have you ever been pushed to act in faith while everyone else was stuck in fear? Why is it that you've always been the one who sees deeper, even when others call you crazy? This ability to see beyond is not merely intuition, it's divine frequency in neuroscience. We might call it elevated conscious awareness. In architecture, it's the master blueprint that only the builder understands, while others see scattered beams. You are holding God's blueprint in your spirit. The world sees dirt, you see foundation. The world hears thunder, you hear calling. One rising entrepreneur named Gabriel shared how, after losing his entire business to a scandal he didn't cause, he heard what he could only describe as a silent vision in prayer. He sketched a new strategy on a napkin, and 3 years later, that napkin turned into a company that now supports thousands of families. What kept him going? Not sight vision, not clarity, faith, and yet, on the other end. Think of infamous art dealer Inigo Karan, a man known in the elite art world for forging masterpieces. Once hailed as a genius curator, he built a kingdom of lies, faking Van Goghs and Monets. For a while, he saw opportunities, but never purpose. When his empire collapsed under FBI investigation, what remained wasn't wealth, but avoid. His vision was limited to profit. Yours is anchored in eternity. Have you been doubting the instructions God whispered in the silence? Are you hesitating because others can't see what you see? That's how you know it's divine. If it made sense to everyone, it wouldn't be sacred. God doesn't need the crowd to approve your calling. In 2 Corinthians 5-7 it says, "For we live by faith, not by sight." You, chosen one, were never meant to follow the eyes of the world. You were meant to walk by what the Spirit reveals. Divine vision isn't about knowing every step. It's about trusting the direction. Let nature remind you of this. The peach tree, unlike many fruit trees, doesn't blossom recklessly. It waits for frost to pass and warmth to deepen the soil. Its pink flowers are fragile, but timed with divine precision. You might look at a bare tree in winter and think it's dead, but deep in the root system, it's preparing an explosion of fruit. The same is true of you. Just because nothing is blooming yet doesn't mean you're behind. You're in sync with heaven's calendar. Chosen one. Are you willing to remain hidden while heaven refines your bloom? In the Gospel of John, Jesus told Nathanael in John 1:50, "You will see greater things than these." You will. But only when your eyes are tuned to what matters most. Distraction distort, doute dim. But divine clarity can cut through the fog. Even in the midst of betrayal, Joseph held on to vision, sold, falsely accused, and imprisoned. He still carried the image God gave him. Genesis 50:20 says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." What others called misfortune was God's redirection. One example comes to mind. Diana, a middle-aged woman who gave up her corporate job after a recurring dream of building a wellness center in the desert, with no money, no investors, just vision. She began recording voice memos of what she believed God was revealing. Today, the Oasis is a sanctuary for burned-out leaders, and hundreds have testified of supernatural healing on that dry land. It began with divine vision. Do you feel it stirring inside you too? This isn't random. Ephesians 1:18 captures it beautifully. "I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you." You're not just chosen, you're being given sacred sight. Now's the time to cast aside the opinions of the blind who mock what they cannot see. Your life is not meant to be a mirror of culture. It's meant to be a window into heaven. Every vision from God carries resistance, but resistance doesn't cancel the call, it confirms it. Chosen one, You are not delusional. You are prophetic. You are not unstable. You are unveiling something eternal. Don't shrink your sight to match their understanding. Expand your faith to match God's intention. Isaías 43:19 declares, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Perceive it. Chosen one, receive it. Declare it. Let the noise of the world fade and the resonance of God's frequency rise within you. This is your moment to lift your eyes, not outward, but upward. The vision is alive in you. Stand up. Step in. See clearly. Walk boldly. When divine confidence rises within you, chosen one, it does something more profound than embolden your personality. It re-engineers your internal architecture. You stop walking like a beggar in the world and start moving like someone who knows they were sculpted by the very hands of God. This isn't ego. It's a revelation. It's not about being loud. It's about being grounded in eternal truth. The kind of confidence that isn't shaken by rejection, nor inflated by applause. It's the kind Joshua carried when he faced Jericho, not with a sword, but with the sound of obedience. Joshua didn't size up the walls. He measured the word of God against them. And when he obeyed what sounded like divine absurdity, marching silently around a fortified city, they fell without a single blow. Joshua 6:20. Can you imagine what would happen if you stopped fixating on your walls and started aligning with your assignment? You're not just anyone. You are God's battle-tested blueprint. Chosen before time. Backed by the Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. Romans 8:11. There's a frequency in your bones, one heaven recognizes and hell fears. The ancient architects of Gothic cathedrals designed every spire to point upward, drawing the eye to heaven. That's what your life is meant to do now. Lift eyes, shift atmosphere, break chains by simply existing in alignment. You're walking into rooms where confidence isn't announced. It's felt. Your energy disturbs the frequency of fear. Your presence stirs discomfort in the counterfeit. And yes, some will resist you. That's how you'll know you're on the right path. True alignment doesn't come without resistance. Michelangelo, the sculptor of the David and the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, once said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." That's what God is doing with you right now, chiseling away doubt, anxiety, insecurity, until only the divine image remains. But not everyone wants you free. Some only liked you when you were imprisoned by your own self-doubt. They won't say it, but your healing offends their stagnation. Now, think of someone like Goliath, a symbol of worldly strength, towering, loud, full of taunts, but hollow. Goliath depended on size, not truth. And because he underestimated David's anointing, he fell by the hand of a boy with a stone and a vision. You carry a similar danger to darkness when you know who you are. Because you won't fight with fear, you'll fight with fire. What if the biggest battle in your life right now isn't your circumstances, but your self-perception? What if the miracle isn't waiting to happen, but waiting for you to believe you're worthy of it? Ephesians 3:12 says, "In him, and through faith in him, we may approach God with freedom and confidence." That's your inheritance, divine boldness, not performance-based approval. I once heard the story of a woman named Moriah, a trauma nurse in a war-torn region. She was quiet, gentle, unnoticed by many. But during an attack on the hospital, when chaos erupted, it was her stillness that anchored everyone. She held the wounded and whispered scriptures while bullets flew. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. Her confidence wasn't in her training, it was in the one who had trained her spirit. That's you. Your quiet strength shifts atmospheres more than noise ever could. The eagle reflects exactly what's awakening in you, while other birds flee from the storm. The eagle flies straight into it because it knows the wind will lift it higher. The turbulence that breaks others is the same force that elevates the eagle above the clouds. Chosen one. That's you. People may say you're reckless, too intense, too different, but they've never seen someone made for high altitudes. You were designed to soar above what others bow to. You don't flap, you glide on the currents of divine favor. You don't hustle, you ascend, and the time has come to stop perching among pigeons, hoping they'll understand your wingspan. What voices have you allowed to define your worth? What fear are you still negotiating with in secret? Why are you still standing at the edge of your promised land, questioning if you're qualified to enter? Hebrews 10:35 declares. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. God doesn't anoint the perfect. He anoints the available. Let this truth ignite something ancient in your bones. You were never called to be tolerated. You were born to be disruptive. Your confidence is not rebellion. It is resonance with the throne room of heaven. It is the echo of God's original intention for you made manifest. You are the answer to a broken system's prayer, the light in rooms designed to dim you, the sword in spiritual warfare, disguised as a smile. Chosen one. If you knew how close you were to your divine manifestation, you'd stop hesitating. You'd stop explaining yourself. You'd stop walking like your knees are made of fear instead of fire. Philippians 4:13 isn't a cliche, it's an atomic truth. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You are rising now, not in ego, but in essence, not for fame, but for fruit. You were sent here not to survive, but to establish, not to please the world, but to shake it. The old version of you can't come into this next chapter. Let the fear go. Let the false humility die. Let the divine confidence rise. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more light. And your light is ready to blind the enemy. When you focus on what matters most, you're not just surviving the moment, you're constructing a spiritual structure that will outlive time. Your life becomes an invisible cathedral, rising one act of obedience at a time. It's not just about personal breakthroughs anymore. It's about generational change. You, chosen one, are laying sacred bricks that your children and their children will stand upon. God didn't place you here just to chase fleeting achievements. He appointed you to establish a divine resonance, a frequency of faith that carries forward even after your name fades from the headlines. Psalm 112, 1-2 promises, Blessed is the man who fears the Lord. His children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Do you feel that weight? The spiritual echo of your decisions is not just affecting you, it's setting the tone for every soul assigned to your bloodline. Remember Abraham? He wasn't just blessed for his faith, he became a conduit for generations of blessing. Genesis 22:18 records God's covenant. Through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. Because you have obeyed me. He stepped into the unknown, left his homeland, surrendered his comfort, and that obedience rerouted the history of humanity. You are stepping into that same lineage of impact. You are building not for applause but for eternal architectural integrity. But let's not be naive. The enemy also knows the power of legacy. Consider Adolf Hitler, raised in the church, trained in theology, yet consumed by ego, pride, and hatred. He didn't build a legacy, he corrupted one. His architecture was built not on faith, but on fear. And the ruin of millions testifies to what happens when a leader chases personal power over divine purpose. That's why your focus matters. That's why your heart has to stay tethered to heaven. Because your decision, whether born from pride or from peace, will echo into eternity. Now let's shift. Imagine a story real. Raf, quietly heroic. In a coastal village in southern Spain, a man named Mateo ran a small orchard and lived quietly every Sunday. Without fail, he read the Psalms aloud to the village children under an old fig tree. One of those children, Lucia, grew up to be a missionary who translated the Bible into a remote dialect in the Philippines. No one ever knew Mateo's name outside that village, but his obedience triggered a ripple that reached across oceans. This is what spiritual resonance looks like. Not fame, fruit, and chosen. One fruit takes time. That's why Jesus said in John 15:16, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last." You're not called to create noise. You're called to cultivate spiritual fruit that doesn't rot under pressure. What if the quiet sacrifices you're making right now are watering the seeds of someone else's deliverance? What if your healing journey is the blueprint your grandchildren will study to rebuild their broken pieces? What if your silent prayers in the midnight hours are crafting a spiritual canopy over your entire family line? Nature understands this better than we do. Think about the elephant matriarch, guiding her herd through dry land to hidden water sources. Only she remembers. Her strength isn't just in leadership, it's in memory, in stewardship, just like her. You've been entrusted with divine memories, testimonies, truths, encounters that are meant to guide others when the spiritual drought hits. And what about architecture again? In sacred architecture, every cathedral begins with hidden stonework foundations few will ever see. That's you right now. God is cementing legacy beneath the surface of your life. You may feel buried, but in reality, you are being built. Hebrews 11:4 speaks of Abel, whose righteous legacy still speaks, even though he is dead. What legacy is your life speaking right now? What will remain when the applause fades and the dust settles? There is a divine dignity in building slowly, faithfully, generationally. You are not chasing moments. You are curating momentum for generations. You are aligning the DNA of your descendants with the divine blueprint of heaven. And if you ever doubt that your life matters, remember this: even Jesus, the Son of God, lived most of his earthly life in obscurity, working with wood, shaping beams, hidden from crowds. But even in the silence, he was building a legacy that would hang on the very wood he once carved. Isaiah 61:3 says, "God will give beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and a garment of praise for a spirit of despair." Your legacy, chosen one, is not being built from perfection, but from redemption, not from worldly success, but from surrendered faith. So now ask yourself, what's the eternal impact of the choices you're making today? Are you planting what will outlive your name? Are you aligning with heaven's echo? Don't you dare minimize the weight of your yes to God. That simple act of focus, that moment of surrender, is writing chapters for a future you won't live to see, but will eternally influence. And now, you rise. You rise with legacy in your bones and eternity in your lungs. You rise not for applause, but for inheritance. You rise because you're chosen to build what others will stand on. Let's talk about the divine favor that's resting upon your life. Yes, right now. Even when you don't feel it. Even when the doors seem shut and the noise of lack tries to drown out the truth. You, chosen one, are being surrounded by a frequency that defies logic. Psalm 5:12 declares, "Surely Lord, you bless the righteous. You surround them with your favor, as with a shield. This isn't a metaphor, it's a divine shield coded into your atmosphere, repelling attacks, absorbing delay, and attracting what aligns with God's plan for you. But here's the mystery. Why does this shield work for you, even when you're not perfect? Because favor is not earned, it's assigned. It flows from obedience, not performance. Ruth understood this long before she ever met Boaz. She wasn't chasing favor. She was walking in loyalty, humility, and unshaken faith. Her story started with loss, grief, and exile. But her alignment with God's purpose placed her directly in the lineage of Christ. You're not just reading history, you are standing in the same supernatural thread of redemption. That same favor is working behind the scenes in your life now. Have you ever wondered why some people carry this quiet magnetism? Why do doors open without striving? Why do storms pass over them like they've been marked? Could divine favor be what you've overlooked while chasing everything else? Think about a story from the art world. Marina Abramović, a renowned performance artist, once said, "If you want to be a real artist, you must be willing to fail in public, bleed with purpose, and never apologize for your essence." Her vulnerability and obedience to her inner vision attracted crowds, wealth, and legacy. That's the principle of favor in disguise. It finds those who are real, rough, and resolute. But let's not just talk about the blessed. Let's talk about the broken, the ones who missed their moment of favor because they focused on the wrong thing. Take Diotrephes, mentioned briefly in 3 John 1-9. He loved to put himself first, rejected truth, and blocked divine messengers. His legacy? A cautionary tale. What would have happened if he humbled himself like Ruth instead of exalting himself? The door of favor slammed shut on him because his ego outran his purpose. Divine favor doesn't visit the proud. It visits the surrendered. Now let's ground this in creation. You are not a leaf drifting in the wind. You are like the baobab tree, sometimes called the tree of life. For years it may look plain, bare, even dead, but underground it is storing water, building resilience, and preparing to burst with fruit in due season. That's what favor does to a chosen one. It hides you to prepare you. It roots you deep before you ever rise tall. Are you willing to grow even when no one claps? That's where favor begins. Let this question sink in. What if what you call delay is actually divine choreography? What if your unanswered prayers are making room for God's outrageous provision? Isaiah 60:10 says, "In my favor, I will have mercy on you." Favor is never just for your convenience, it's for your calling. It's the quiet storm that levels opposition without you lifting a finger. The world calls it luck, but heaven calls it legacy. A woman named Claudine worked in obscurity as a receptionist at a law firm. She wasn't flashy, didn't network, never played politics, but every lunch break, she prayed over the office and quietly encouraged her co-workers. One day, the CEO walked in broken, tired, and near divorce. Claudine gave him a word that no one else had the courage to speak. Years later, that same CEO promoted her to head of operations. Why? Divine favor. That's what happens when you carry light in secret places. Romans 8:31 reminds you, if God is for us, who can be against us? This isn't hype, it's strategy. Favor is how God shifts the weight in your direction. When you focus on what matters most, your faith, your purpose, your obedience, favor begins to echo in every room you walk into. Can you feel it now? That still voice calling you to stop striving and start aligning, to stop explaining and start embodying. Chosen one. God's favor doesn't show up where fear leads. It shows up when you surrender the script and follow the author. Eclesiastes 9:11 says, "The race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, but time and chance happen to them all. The world calls it random, but to the chosen ones, this chance is heaven's fingerprint." You're not just walking into rooms, you're walking into rooms prepared for your arrival. And don't forget, favor isn't just a blessing, it's a burden. It will expose you to envy, it will attract the wrong kind of attention, but it will never abandon you, even in the fire. You'll find the fourth man, even in the den. The lions won't bite. Salm 84:11 declares, "No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly." And you are not here to beg, you're here to inherit. Sorrise. Chosen one. Walk like you're covered, speak like the heavens back your voice, move like the future is making room for you. Because it is, you feel it rising inside you, don't you? That strange, sacred pull, the one you can't quite name, yet can't ignore. Chosen one. That's not your imagination. That's divine joy breaking through. Not happiness, joy. Not a feeling, a force. A force so rooted in your connection to God that not even hell can rob it. This is the kind of joy Nehemiah spoke of in 8:10. The joy of the Lord is your strength. It's not an escape from pain, it's power within it. It bubbles up during pressure, it radiates in the dark, and it makes you spiritually unshakable. You are not here to barely get by. You are here to radiate, and that radiance begins in your surrender. Have you wondered why your soul still sings, even when your circumstances scream? Why does something in you refuse to die? No matter how hard life has tried, that's divine joy. Paul wrote from prison, "Rejoice in the Lord always." I will say it again, rejoice. He wasn't faking peace, he became it. Your joy is not random, it's a spiritual weapon. It protects your atmosphere. It shifts your perception. It magnetizes miracles. That's why the enemy doesn't just attack your finances or your relationships, he attacks your joy. Because if he can steal that, he can short-circuit your entire destiny. But you, chosen one, are different. You are like the penguin, yes. The creature people laugh at because it cannot fly, but it swims through freezing oceans with elegance and ease, dominating an environment it was never expected to survive in. That's divine irony, and that's divine design. Now let's talk about purpose. You didn't come to Earth to drift. You came to disrupt. You carry a blueprint straight from heaven's archives, an assignment no one else can complete. Ephesians 2:10 says, "We are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Your purpose isn't something to earn, it's something to uncover. It's already in your DNA. Jonah tried to outrun his purpose, but even the sea knew better. The wind, the whale, the storm, everything obeyed God's voice until Jonah finally did. You can delay, but you can't derail what God wrote over you. Have you felt the agitation lately? The divine restlessness? That's not confusion, that's confirmation. That's how purpose speaks when you've ignored it too long. It begins to haunt the silence, burn behind your eyelids, and ache inside your spirit. And once you say yes, nothing fits the same again. Nick Vujicic. Born without limbs, could have accepted the narrative of limitation. Instead, he became a global testimony of power in weakness. If you can't get a miracle, he once said, be one. That's what you're becoming. Chosen one. A walking miracle. A force of divine assignment. But don't forget Jezebel, ruthless, manipulative, obsessed with image. She chose performance over purpose and died, trampled. Her legacy crushed under her own schemes. That's what happens when power is pursued without surrender. You're not her. You are Jonah returning. You are Nick rising. You are chosen. And this purpose, this roar in your bones, demands transformation. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This isn't about tweaking behavior. This is a spiritual metamorphosis, a restructuring of your essence. You're not becoming a better you. You're becoming a heaven-authored vessel, a carrier of frequency, a portal of divine light. Saul became Paul after an encounter with glory. God didn't fix him, he flipped him. Murderer to miracle, terrorist to teacher. That same power is alive in you, right now. Have you noticed the systems around you cracking, your cravings shifting, your silence deepening? You're not falling apart, you're molting, like a snake shedding old skin. You're stepping out of limitation, like a phoenix. You're burning off identity built in survival, to rise in purpose, built in spirit. There will be Diotrephes types, those who reject change and cling to ego. Mentioned in 3 John 1-9. Their story ended in irrelevance. But Edith Stein, a Jewish philosopher who became a nun and saint, walked headfirst into her transformation and became eternal light. This is what divine transformation does. It turns trauma into testimony, shame into sacred, dust into destiny, and in nature, this is reflected in the redwood tree. Massive, towering, unstoppable. But what holds it up? A root system so deeply interlocked with others that no storm can topple it. You, chosen one, are being rooted. You are becoming part of heaven's living structure, intertwined, sustained, and rising. Let this be your declaration. I am not who I was. I am who God is forming. So let joy rise like fire in your lungs. Let purpose burn away every false label. Let transformation rewrite your story. You are chosen. You are appointed. You are unleashed. The world has seen your struggle. Now let it witness your glow. You, chosen one, are not here by accident. You're not wandering through time without purpose. You've been anointed by the hand of God to carry something eternal. And now, something sacred is stirring inside you, an invitation to step into your divine momentum and awaken what the world could never give you nor take from you. Let's begin with the divine joy that's rising within you. This joy isn't artificial happiness. It's not the type that flickers with circumstance. It's the kind of joy that Nehemiah 8:10 spoke of. The joy of the Lord is your strength. It's atomic, resilient, unexplainable. A joy that dances in the fire and sings in the storm. Paul, in chains, still managed to write, "Rejoice in the Lord always." I will say it again, rejoice. Philippians 4:4. He didn't wait for freedom to access joy, because joy was already free within him. Do you ever wonder what it would look like to tap into that kind of joy in your darkest hour? What would happen if your joy stopped depending on external victories and started flowing from divine alignment? Even in nature, joy often blooms from unexpected places. Picture the alpine marmot, a creature that whistles songs from mountaintops, even in thin air. Like them, You too are called to release sounds of joy where most would only hear silence. That's your frequency. Chosen one. But joy is not just for you to feel. It's the signal that your divine purpose has been activated. You were not created to drift in chaos. Jonah tried that. He ran, resisted, rebelled. But purpose has a gravity, and God's call pulled Jonah right back into destiny's orbit. Has your purpose been chasing you? Even in your silence, you weren't designed to merely survive. You were created to construct sacred architecture in this broken world, to carry revelation like scaffolding into collapsing systems. Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Purpose isn't something you create, it's something you uncover. And when purpose aligns with heaven, transformation follows. Not the type you see in shallow makeovers, but a divine metamorphosis. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Think of the hedgehog, not the glamorous symbol of change, but one that curls into a ball in winter silence, only to emerge in full strength as seasons turn. God hides your growth like that, slow, sacred, and shocking to those who thought they knew your story. You are no longer who you were. The old you is dissolving. The new you is rising, radiant, armored, alive. And in this transformation, God is sending divine connections, not crowds, not noise, but people whose spirits resonate with yours. Like David and Jonathan, their souls were knit together not by position, but by divine alignment. Who around you is magnetized not by your performance, but your presence. To make space for these connections, you'll have to do something hard. Prune. Let go of those who mock your growth. Cut off what drains your roots. Like the red mangrove tree that survives in salt water by filtering toxins through sacrificial roots, you too must shed what poisons your purpose. Not all connections are divine, but the right ones, they'll shift your entire atmosphere. And when divine connections come, so does divine wisdom. This isn't about intellect. This is about insight that slices through confusion, like light through fog. Proverbs 2:6 says, for the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Solomon didn't ask for power. He asked for perception. And because of that, he ruled with favor beyond comprehension. So ask yourself, are you seeking answers, or the source of all answers? Divine wisdom often disguises itself in silence, in stillness, in divine delay. Now, let's talk about divine restoration, God's specialty. Joel 2:20 promises, I will restore the years the locusts have eaten. Have you lost years to addiction, anxiety, betrayal? Have you watched your dreams decay like a neglected orchard? Imagine a wild bison returning to a once barren prairie. Its steps reawaken the soil. Life returns simply because the right presence walked in. That's you, chosen one. Where you step, restoration follows. Not because you fight harder, but because you finally focused on what matters most, Him. But not everyone wants you to walk in this truth. Let's talk about the villain, Marcel. Once a global speaker known for his influence, slowly abandoned purpose for power. He began manipulating people's pain, preaching for profit, drowning in vanity. One night, standing in front of thousands, his voice cracked mid-sentence and never returned, physically unharmed, but spiritually silenced. Divine favor, Helift. Legacy lost, This is what happens when favor is mistaken for entitlement. You don't carry light to be worshipped. You carry light to illuminate. In contrast, Jean Vanier, founder of L'Arche Communities for the Disabled, spent decades building homes where the world discarded people. His life whispered, "True power is found in vulnerability." That's divine confidence, not loud, but seismic. And now you, chosen one, are being called into your own seismic shift. This is your moment to rise, not just emotionally, but spiritually, intellectually, even scientifically. You are a resonator, vibrating at the frequency of heaven. Every choice you make creates ripple effects. Every yes to God restructures the very blueprint of your legacy. So I'll end with this. Stand. Stand like a lighthouse in a storm. Stand like a violin string tuned to divine frequency. Stand like Elijah on Mount Carmel, surrounded by doubters, but consumed by fire. This is not just inspiration. This is a holy summons. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. You are not late. You are right on God's time. You are not just chosen. You are awakened. Chosen one. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you refuses to stay asleep. That spark, that pull, that ache for something greater. It's not just emotion. It's evidence. God is moving in you, and He's not finished. You've seen what happens when you focus on what matters most. Joy rises. Purpose awakens. Transformation begins. Divine connections find you. Wisdom pours in, and restoration follows. This isn't just inspiration. This is alignment, a sacred shift. You're not just learning, you're becoming. But the journey doesn't end here. It's just getting started. If this message stirred your spirit, I invite you to amplify it. Hit that like button to spread this divine energy into the world. Comment 777 below as a bold declaration. I'm ready for what God has for me. And if this resonated deeply with you, share it with someone who needs to remember who they are. Because this isn't just a message, it's a movement. Subscribe and stay with us on this path. You're not walking alone. Thousands of chosen ones are rising with you. And whether you supported this channel through a super thanks or simply by watching until the end, I want to say this from the depths of my spirit. Thank you. Your presence here is a gift. Your heart is seen. Your journey is holy. May God surround you with peace that silences fear, favor that opens impossible doors, and fire that keeps you burning for what's eternal. May your days be filled with purpose, and your nights wrapped in divine rest. Until next time, stay bold, stay blessed, and never stop walking in what matters most. You are chosen, you are rising, and your best chapter is just beginning.